Hello, everyone. This is Yamina, and this is the March edition, video edition of the Dr. GPCR newsletter. Today, I'm happy to have with me Dr. Oliver Hartley. He is Associate Professor at the University of Geneva and also VP of Drug Discovery at Orion Biotechnology, which is one of our partners in the ecosystem. Hi, Oliver.
Hi, Amina. Thanks very much for inviting me on for this this different kind of newscast.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to have you on today. And this is something new that we started out earlier this year. Last month, we had Anne-Marie Quinn, CEO of Montana Molecular, also one of our partners. And before we start, I just want to take a moment to thank all our ecosystem partners, namely Domain Therapeutics, GPCR Therapeutics, Design Pharmaceuticals, Montana Molecular, and as well Orion Biotechnology. All right, so let's dive in. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Let's dive into it, and let's start with the news on your end. I know we've talked about it before we hit record. What is happening recently at Orion?
Well, I guess what we're really excited about is our lead campaign, which is a CCR5 inhibitor which came off our platform, heading towards an oncology indication. And we're just getting ready to make an IND submission. So hopefully during the second half of the second quarter of this year. That's very exciting. And then, as you know, at the GPCR Discovery Summit, we presented some of our very nice preclinical data on the CCR2 campaign in inflammation. And right now we're working on deciding on the next models to go into to firm up that data. And then I can't really describe any details, but in the lab, we've got some new discovery projects underway, which have already had a great deal of traction since January. So good times at Orion right now.
That's great. That's great. And I have to stop and mention that I really enjoyed your talk at the GPCR Targeted Drug Discovery Summit. So much that when you stopped, at the end of the talk, I told myself, what, that's it? I want to hear more. So it was a really, really great talk.
Well, you know what they say? They always say, try to leave the audience wanting more at the end of the show.
So well, you did. You absolutely did. And I also want to mention that it was the first time that we actually interacted in person. I was going to say the first time we met in person, but that's not true, because the first time we were in the same room was a few years back when I was doing a postdoc in Tom Sackmar's lab, who was also at the meeting last month in February. And you were giving a presentation. I think it was also on CCR5 at the time.
Yes, that's right. I remember it very well. And you told me in the podcast we did together that I was wearing a very spectacular shirt at the time.
Yes, yes, definitely. And we're talking now, but in my mind, I can still see you presenting. And that was a very interesting and spectacular shirt. And I thought, okay, well, this is a cool guy. He's doing really cool stuff. And he's also working on one of my favorite receptor families, which are chemokine receptors. And lo and behold, 10 years later, we ended up meeting in person and actually chatting.
Yeah, and it was great as well. It's a real pleasure. And I must say, just about that summit as a whole, how nice it was to go and travel and meet people face to face, because since the pandemic, we haven't done that very much. And the second thing, which I thought was really, really, really nice, is that we got to meet the scientists from what you could consider to be competing companies.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere wasn't like that at all. It was really friendly. We were sharing. I like the way that the summit was organized, that we had this kind of speed dating sessions, so you get a chance to talk to everybody. And I really liked the presentations from the other companies as well. So it was a really fulfilling time, both socially and scientifically at that meeting.
I think so too. I think it was really, really well organized, well prepared, and same. I can only echo that. I really like the speed dating activity. I wish we would have had more than one, but yeah, it was a very friendly meeting. A lot of companies were very forthcoming with their data, with their targets, and it was a very, very great first interaction. I think there aren't a lot of industry only or majoritarily industry meetings in person. COVID helped us go on Zoom, but now we're able to meet in person, and this was a very nice program. Can't wait to see what's coming up next year.
Yeah, but yeah, really good. And I'll just take the opportunity to say thanks again to the colleagues from the field for being so open and sharing about the science they're doing. It was really, really very inspiring for us. We enjoyed it a lot.
A lot. Yeah, me too. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was honestly, it was a GPCR. 3 days filled with just GPCRs, which is just what I love.
Who could ask for more than that?
Yes.
We like to talk about it. We listen to the podcasts. We've
Yeah.
got the merchandise, and we went to the meeting.
Exactly. And there's a cool meeting coming up as well in June. I don't know if you're attending the Gordon Molecular Pharmacology meeting
Yes,
in your
luckily
backyard.
for it's just in my backyard in Les Diableret, which is in the
Yes.
French-speaking part of Switzerland, not far from Geneva.
Yeah.
And yes, I signed up for it early on because that's a meeting that quite quickly gets oversubscribed. So I put
Yes.
my application in early, and I'm happy to say I got it accepted. So I'm looking forward to that meeting.
Great. And I will see you there. I've already booked my ticket. I'm ready to go. Booked my accommodations as well, and I'll be both at the GRS, the seminar, and also at the GRC. We are supporting the GRS. I think this is our first Dr. GPCR sponsorship for a Gordon research seminar, and also I'll be leading a discussion at the GRC. I think I'm the last one in the program, which is going to be, I think, a fun way to end the meeting. So very excited about that.
The wrap up session. That'll be good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think it's going to be very nice to see some of the people more from academia as well in the community. So I'm very much looking forward to that. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Is it the first time you have been to Europe since the pandemic?
Yes. I haven't been to Europe since 2012, which is a shame. But 2012, and I don't think I've spent more than a couple of hours in Switzerland. So I think I'm gonna spend maybe 12 to 15 hours in Geneva before going on Saturday morning to the meeting. It's gonna be really fun.
Great. Well, I checked, and Europe hasn't changed all that much since you were last there in 2012. It's, geographically hasn't changed that much.
That's good.
And Switzerland's looking forward to welcoming you.
Thank you. And I do speak French, so I think I won't get lost or anything, and still will understand when people are staying around me.
Good.
Super.
Well, the Chemokines GRC was there last year, and so I know the site quite well. It's in a very nice part, of Switzerland in the mountains. Lots of scenery and fresh air, so people visiting will enjoy it.
I think so too, and I think the next Chemokine GRC is going to be here in the U.S. in Vermont. I really want to go to that one because I went to only one Chemokine GRC and I thought it was just amazing. As much as I love our field, I think the GPCR community is really supportive and helpful, and I think that very much translates into the Chemokine family or subfamily of the GPCR community.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we both agree that the Chemokines are the nicest GPCRs.
Of course.
As
well. Of course they are.
Not wishing to offend any of the listeners.
Absolutely not. But speaking of GPCRs, one big news we have is that this year we won't have a regular Dr. GPCR summit. We used to have that 5 days, either in September or October, and I've received a lot of feedback from people telling, well, there's so many topics and we don't know which talk to go to. So we decided to create the Dr. GPCR Symposia. And it's 5 separate events on specific topics. The first one is next Friday, March 24th. The first symposium is around understanding challenging GPCRs. And these are the GPCRs that I call funky. So class F, adhesion GPCRs, olfactory GPCRs, and orphan GPCRs. And we have a really great lineup of speakers. So we have Graham Milligan, we have Anthony Picard, Ben Myers, Ines Liebscher, Antonella Di Pizio, and we've also worked with our guests and PIs to get trainees to give talks. So, and the last talk is going to be by Jackie, and Jackie is finishing up her PhD in Australia. So it's going to be Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, but for her, it's going to be Saturday, 8 a.m. in Australia, and she's in Chris Langmead's lab. So everyone is welcome to join if you're a part of the ecosystem, even with a free site membership. The Zoom link is already in the ecosystem. You just have to sign up. Make sure that you provide us information as to how you are part of the GPCR field. And it should be seamless. It starts Friday, March 24th at 8 a.m. Eastern time. We have about 10 live talks scheduled. And we also reserved a 2-hour period for poster presentations and also networking. So far, I think we have one poster presentation that was promised. So at this point, we don't have poster presentations. There's still time to submit the poster form. It's on our website. People can very easily submit their posters, and we will be able to interact for 2 hours virtually on a platform called Wonder. I don't know if you're familiar with Wonder, but
No,
it's
I'm not.
really cool.
Yeah, it sounds. I was going to ask you about how things work. I mean, I guess the first question is when you're soliciting posters, that those would be posters for people who are working in the theme of the
Yes.
symposium. So
Yes.
so specifically those people.
Absolutely.
And as what I'd say to younger people who might be thinking about putting a poster out there, you'd be surprised what a good option it is for getting some good conversation and networking started. Everything starts with a poster quite often, so it's worth doing, and it's worth exchanging. Then the second thing I wanted to ask you is, for people, I mean, typically, how does it work? Do people come for the whole symposium, or do they just kind of dip into bits they're interested in? How do you see participation based on previous experience?
Based on previous experiences, I think we've had a little bit of both. Sometimes would people would just come in because we have somebody, we have the Brian Roth, who is also going to be joining us as a speaker. And I think I hope Brian won't hate me for this, but he's the only one who hasn't submitted his abstract yet. So
a little reminder for Brian if he's listening.
Exactly. But it really depends. Sometimes people come for the speaker, and sometimes people come for the topic, and that's why we decided to split up the summit into symposia, one symposium at a time with different topics. After the March one, the next one is May 19th, and we're already thinking about the program. It's a Friday as well. All the events are going to have the same structure. We have space for 12 live talks, 3 in the morning with a short break, and then followed by 3 more. In the middle of the day, we have the poster session and the networking, and then we have 3 break and then 3 last talks. And the May 19th event is going to be around the topic of GPCR signaling and activation. And everyone is welcome to put forward their name for a live talk. We tried not to restrict the live talks to PIs. If you're a trainee and you have a great story to tell, just shoot us an email at hello@drgpcr.com and we'll follow up with you. And since it's GPCR signaling and activation, I was thinking I would be focusing on inviting potential speakers who either work on GPCR signaling at the plasma membrane or signaling beyond the plasma membrane. I'm thinking here nuclear signaling or endosomal signaling, which could be really interesting, an interesting topic to rush upon.
Well, that sounds great. And so, when you said it's a standard timing for each one of these, for us Central Europeans, like in Switzerland, what kind of times of the day are we talking about for this?
I would have to. I think I'd have to calculate this. What time is it?
We're -6. So
Yes.
now it's for me. It's 5:30 in the afternoon.
Okay,
right
so
now.
we would be starting around noon, your time.
Okay.
So it's 8 a.m. EST. Yeah. So that'd be around noon, and we would go down to 10 p.m. Your time. So it's noon to 10-ish.
Okay. Yeah.
And we try to schedule these talks. Typically in the morning, we have either the Europeans or the North Americans, and then the afternoon we have people from the West Coast potentially and Australia.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you have to cater for everyone around the world, so it's complicated to find the right time slots. Absolutely.
It is.
And are these recorded as well? Can people access the presentations afterwards?
Yes, and that was going to be my next point. You read my mind. We will, whenever we get permission from the speaker, we're going to be recording the talks. The talks will be in the ecosystem, available for premium members to watch at any time, whenever you're ready to. So I know that you've presented previously at the summit and you are a premium member of the ecosystem. So if you miss any of the talks, especially in the afternoon, since you have family obligations, you can come back at any time and watch those.
Okay, that's good to hear. Very good.
Yes. One other thing I wanted to mention is When with the scheduling, we typically ask for a 20-minute talk and a 10-minute Q&A, and it's basically a scheduling link. And as a speaker, you get to pick the time slot that works for you.
Okay, that sounds good. And just one question about how do you organize the questions when you've got a situation like that? Do you get people lined up in a row, or do you have people asking questions in the text? How does it work?
So it's a little bit of both. It depends on the speaker. Most of the time, I tell the attendees to put the questions in the chat, unless the speaker says you can ask me questions at any time. And then people are very courteous, I have to say. I had to push in the summit after the first 2 days. People got comfortable and then they raised their hands. There's this raise hand option on Zoom. And it's really first come, first served. And sometimes what I really like to see in these discussions is, conversations that says, oh, I'm going to reach out to you because maybe we should collaborate. But it's really, people are very curious, I think, in the GPCR field. People type the questions in the chat or raise their hand, and then they can turn on their camera and their microphone and ask their question.
It's quite special. Even now in our conversation right now, I'm being careful not to try to talk until you've finished, because on Zoom sometimes there's a delay and it can make things complicated. So it's not quite so spontaneous as in a face-to-face meeting where you can suddenly, cut in and interrupt. It doesn't come so easily. So maybe that kind of etiquette of, putting the hand up and asking questions in the chat is the best way to go for these kind of things.
Yes. And to just give you kind of a behind the scenes note or, vision of what we do, I always have a Google Doc for each event where I have these etiquette and protocols listed out, and I read them out aloud at the beginning of each session so that people are well aware of these. And I always have my little spiel ready. I read it, not that I don't know what it is, but I prefer to read it to make sure that I make all the points. And to be honest, I really enjoy doing these things, and I always listen carefully to each talk so that I can, if there are no questions, I can ask the first question to get the conversation started. But depending on the speaker, sometimes people just jump on, and it's really a nice interactive session.
Yeah, so it's like being a long-term chairperson at a conference with over many sessions. I guess it's like that.
Yes.
So it's quite tiring, in fact.
It is. Last year, I took 5 days off of work so that I can chair all the 30+ sessions, 30+ talks for the summit. And although it was very tiring, I loved every minute of it.
That's good. So, it's very rewarding.
Yes, it is. This was it on our end from Dr. GPCR News. Oliver, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you can join us on March 24th. If not, for the next events, as I mentioned, the next one is May 19th, and we're going to be talking about GPCR signaling and activation. There's a lot of things we can put into that topic. Yeah. And I know it's Friday, so I want to thank you for your time. Wish you a great weekend. And with this was the March edition of the video version of the Dr. GPCR News.
Well, thanks again for inviting me. It's very nice talking to you like this. And I'll be certainly popping in to see one or two of the presentations in the next symposium. Looking forward to it. And a nice weekend to you too.